Welcome to Is Your Way in Your Way podcast, where your host, Cassandra Crawley Mayo, helps you break free from obstacles and live life on your terms. Get ready to embark on a journey of self-discovery, empowerment, and inspiration. Tune in as we dive into captivating conversations with experts and explore topics that will ignite your passion and drive. Are you ready to unlock your full potential? Let's dive in.
Good day out there to all my listeners, and I'd like to welcome you to Is Your Way in Your Way. And for those new listeners, my name is Cassandra Crawley Mayo, and I am actually a transformational lifestyle mentor who empowers women to start living your best life on your terms. We talk about topics such as empowerment, personal empowerment, sometimes business empowerment. Also, it will enable you to reflect over your life. And my prayer has always been that when somebody sees my podcast, they will all of a sudden pivot and say to themselves, you know what? I'm stuck. There's certain things that I want to do and I'm not doing it. And I'm tired. So based on the discussion, I think I'm there, and I made the decision. And once you make that decision, you're ready to execute, right? And so today, our title is Reinvention at Any Stage, Why Your Next Chapter Matters. So let me ask you this. What if retirement isn't the end of your story, but the beginning of a whole new chapter? My next guest proves that stepping away from the title and paycheck can be the doorway to purpose, freedom, and joy. Her message is simple. You can retire and still be killing it. Tune in as we uncover how to remove the barriers of fear, uncertainty, limiting beliefs, and step boldly into your next season with clarity and purpose. Let me introduce you to my special guest, Lisa Haynes. Hi, Lisa.
Hello. It is wonderful to be here, Cassandra.
Oh, I'm so glad you're here. We have so many things in common as it relates to our mission and our vision. So it's going to be splendid for this to have this conversation. And I'm certain that somebody that's listening to us today will say, now I think I can retire, or maybe it's not so much retiring, but maybe leaving the job that I'm currently in and do something else. Right. So before we get started with the conversation, I want to read your bio because I want my listeners to understand what is qualifying you to talk about this topic that we're going to talk about, reinvention at any stage. Now, Lisa Haynes is a certified executive and retirement coach. She's author of Retired and Killing It, and creator of the Killing It formula, a proven framework for helping people thrive in life after work. After a successful corporate career, Lisa realized that retirement wasn't about slowing down, but about stepping into a season of purpose, connection, and joy. Today, she's empowers millions of boomers approaching retirement to reimagine what's possible when the paycheck stops, but life is just beginning. Her organization is Haynes Executive Solutions, and an author of Retired and Killing It. And she also has a companion book. She was a CFO and Chief Diversity and also an Inclusion Officer. Wow. All about that DEI, huh? And that CFO, right? Well, Lisa, now tell my listeners, what was life like before you got into the financial aspect of things? Like, was it something in your childhood that gave you a passion for math? Tell us about that.
It's funny, Cassandra. I actually didn't like math so much, right? And I mean, it was okay. And then you get to high school and you start taking that math that you think is useless, like geometry and calculus, and you're like, why algebra? Why does anybody ever need to know this stuff? But it was in high school that I took my first accounting course. And that is what led me to accounting. I took what they call now is probably, well, I learned then is probably closer to bookkeeping than accounting, but call it what you want. They called it the accounting course. That was the first course I took. And I left that saying, I'm going to major in accounting because I just really enjoyed it. It just snapped with me, right? It just clicked, even in high school. And so I left high school, went to college, got an undergraduate degree in accounting, then went to public accounting, right? So it really, for me, just started at the beginning of my career. I naturally figured out what I was good at and what I wanted to do.
Really? So tell us, what about your work and the career that you had that you liked? What was it about it you liked?
So I do like numbers. I don't like math numbers, but I do like numbers. I like analysis. And so that part of accounting, where we do the analysis and tell a story. So numbers tell a story. I always had a good memory for numbers. So I have, my 2 credit cards. I know the credit card numbers off the top of my head, have for a really long time. Most people are like, well, why do you know that? And I'm like, well, it's my credit card. But I know the numbers, and I know, I can just rattle off my credit card. So I've always been good at that. And I think the thing that I enjoyed most was just really taking something apart. My superpower is problem solving. And in accounting, that is a great place to put a superpower like problem solving, because there's always a problem to be solved. Yeah. So just really looked forward to that kind of thing. And then as I moved up in my career, it became more about being able to teach others, right? I love the idea of leadership. I always wanted to be a good leader, not a mediocre leader. And so studied leadership. And that would be the second thing. Leading people was always a passion of mine. I just felt like there were so many bad and mediocre leaders in corporate America. I wanted to not be one of those.
Okay. Interesting, because I didn't like math either. and I did major in finance, and my memory wasn't that great. So that's amazing. So it sounds to me that it was something in your DNA that enabled you to be very successful in the finance arena, right? So why did you? Okay, this is for my listeners. I have a lot of listeners who are stuck, and many of them are not really into their jobs. They're just like, well, this is not what I really want to do, but I can't transition because I need the money.
Yes.
So there are individuals that are in situations that aren't happy. And that's what life in general, many of them are. And so what you and I discuss and work towards the empowerment and getting individuals to that, what I call a joyful place. I don't say a happy place, because to me, a happy is a happening. I drive my dream car and I'm so happy. 2 months later, I'm like, that's all right. I mean, when I got married, I was so happy, all of that. So we're going to talk about, that joy. Let me ask you this. You had mentioned something that I read about an introvert as a leader. Tell me about that, because we have a lot of introverts, leadership not being able to, and finding their niche. Tell us a little bit about that, because I do have some introverts, and I think many of the individuals that have not moved forward are like in their own zone, and don't want to spread, or just comfortable, I guess.
Absolutely.
What's their niche?
So, one of the things that I think is really important for introverts is to recognize that you're probably not going to ever be an extrovert. And so don't try. And I think sometimes as introverts, I'm an introvert, and people are like, well, you seem very social. And I said, that's not what introversion or extroversion is. It's where do I get my energy from? I'm quickly drained by lots of activity, lots of people, lots of talking. but I can go forever by myself, right? If I'm working by myself, I can go forever. So introverts, it's where do you get your energy from? And so one of the challenges for introverts really is finding your voice. That is hard for an introvert to, even when they found their voice, to then use their voice. And so that's why the work that you do is so important. I had an executive coach. So when I got to a certain level, I got an executive coach who helped me to learn to use my voice. I already knew where my voice was, but as an introvert, you may or may not use that voice. You'll listen to all the extroverts talk, and then you'll decide, I don't really feel like speaking, or what I have to say isn't that important, or it's not going to change anything. So learning how to use that voice becomes critically important for introverts, particularly those who are in a leadership capacity, because as a leader, you're not just representing you, you're representing the people that work for you. You're speaking on their behalf as well. And so I do think that there's a good place for coaches as it relates to introverts to just help them step to that next level of being the leader who can face off with the extroverts. And not that the extroverts are bad people, but they're going to monopolize the airtime. I heard from someone who said extroverts talk to think and introverts think to talk. And so before we talk as introverts, we're going to think about it. Extroverts are processing out loud, but as a result, they're taking up a lot of the airtime. Introverts, by the time they're ready to speak, somebody said, yeah, the meeting's over by the time you guys have figured out what you want to say. I don't know if we're that bad, but I understand. And so from an introvert perspective, there is a place where you find your safe place as a leader, where you don't have to step out and be an extrovert. You know, being an introvert.
Ready to design your dream life? Join Cassandra Crawley Mayo's Create and Design Your Best Life workshop. Break free from self-doubt and obstacles and step into a life of purpose and fulfillment. Click the link in the description to register now. Don't wait. Spaces are limited. Start living your best life today.
Just a moment. Lisa is frozen for a minute, but I'm certain she'll be back. There she is.
Am I back? I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I froze for a minute. And the thing is, I didn't even know I was frozen. So when I stepped into the CFO role, what's interesting is part of that role was going to cocktail parties and attending meetings, and it would just be the most painful thing for me. Like, oh my gosh, I have to go to one more cocktail party. But what I learned was I didn't have to go to the party like an extrovert. So I would find one or two people, and that I set a goal for myself. I'm going to meet two people at this meeting. That's the most I could do. And I would go find two people, and I'd introduce myself and find small groups to stand in without overwhelming myself. I know other people who can work an entire room. That is me. I cannot work. And by the time I finish, I really am exhausted. I kind of want to take a nap.
Yeah.
So just for an introvert, knowing who you are, not trying to be the extrovert who's working the room, because that will wear you out, but find your space where you can be really comfortable. Set a goal for yourself of this is what I can do at this particular meeting, and then give yourself permission to say, I've been successful, and now I'm going to move on.
Right. That's good. That's good. I asked that too because I'm an introvert, and a lot of people are surprised. And you're right on. But the message from what you just stated, I want my listeners to know: don't apologize for being who you were created to be. You know, and it's okay that you're who you are. And I say that because I struggled in the boardrooms, like, didn't say much, but I was thinking, so then when I said something, it's like, okay, it's like everybody listen. But it took me a minute to do that. And then if I didn't have my voice heard after the meeting, I would sink like, oh man, they think, they think she really had this job. She doesn't really say a lot, Yeah.
Absolutely.
So with that said, why did you said you were born to retire, right?
I did.
So,
I just felt like I was really good at it. Like I walked into retirement, and I said that jokingly on the stage, because the reality is I hadn't really, when I had that, I hadn't really stepped fully out into retirement. I had just been only retired for 3 weeks and was really kind of cracking a joke, but I learned some things in the next month or so about retirement, which is what led me to do this retirement coaching, because I realized that it wasn't as easy of a step as I thought it was going to be, having stepped out of a very senior role and now stepped into a place where it was just basically a void. Like there's a black hole I'm stepping into, and I got to figure out what that black hole is going to look like.
Right. Yeah. So tell the audience, how did your journey from CFO retirement to retirement coach change your perspective on what your purpose was?
So when I retired from a Mortgage Bankers Association, which is where I was working, I felt like I had accomplished what I went there to accomplish, right? So I didn't leave because, somebody was saying it was time to go. As I told people, I want to leave before you guys, while you guys want me to still stay. I don't want to stay so long that you're asking when I'm going to retire.
Right.
And so when I left and came out, I said I wanted to do executive coaching. And then in that process, ran into this thing called retirement coaching. And what it changed for me was the perspective of there are lots of people like me who are stepping into this void, this black hole, and need to figure out what's next for the next 20 to 30 plus years of your life, right? It just, it doesn't seem like that big of a deal until you step out of there and you realize you don't have a plan for 20 to 30 years. You may have a plan that's maybe 1 or 2 years. I'm going to do this. I'm going to travel. Everybody's going to travel when you retire, by the way. Everybody's going to do all these things. And then you realize, first of all, traveling costs money. And second of all, you really don't want to be gone that much. Like you realize you like your house. You kind of want to be home. You want to do some things at home, but just really establishing that. And what it changed for me was from purpose of when you're working, and you said it earlier, you need the paycheck. You put up with lots of things because you need the paycheck. You're not ready to switch yet, or you're not ready to retire yet. But what it changed for me was what's really important to me right now, right? And so for me, what was really important when I left was I wanted to keep making an impact, and I wanted to keep building on my legacy. I left a legacy when I left my job of people's lives that I've touched and systems created and all that good stuff. But I wanted to keep building on that legacy. And so that completely, to me, kind of tipped on its head when I realized that this retirement coaching really was something that could help people move into that next chapter, not feeling like it's the last chapter and I'm on my way out, but feeling like it's my next chapter and it's going to be just as exciting or more exciting than my last chapter.
Was there someone in your circle that supported this transition? Did you talk to anybody about it? I know you thought about it because you're an introvert. And you thought about the paycheck and all of that financially. How did you get through that?
So, it's the thing is, most companies and most of us, we prepare for the financial side. That is the one thing we pay attention to. Will I have enough money to retire? Right. And so when I started at the MBA, I met with the 401k advisor and he said, what are your goals? I said, I want to retire at 55. And he's like, well, that's 10 years from now. So that's not that long ago. I said, yeah, but if I shoot for 55, I'm going to get pretty close, right? I'm going to be within range. So the first thing was I had to set a goal financially. When did I want to retire? And then working with a financial person to help you figure out how much money you need. One of the biggest myths out there is I need $1 million to retire. Well, that's a number somebody threw out. It's stuck and it's stuck. People think I can't retire. I don't have $1 million. Well, for someone, $1 million is enough. For someone, $1 million is more than they're going to need, depending on what they spend. And for some people, $1 million isn't even close to enough money. And so it just is really going to depend on that person. But then as I started to think about kind of what's next, so interestingly enough, maybe where some of the listeners are, I was in the job. I wasn't unhappy, but I just felt like I should be doing something else. Like I'm ready to move on. So I'm a part of this organization. They give you coaching as a part of the networking organization. So I met with what they call a transition coach. And I started telling her what I'm thinking about. She said, okay, I'm going to give you some questions. I want you to go away and think about them and we'll come back and meet next time. She gave me a series of questions. What does the company look like that you want to move to? How big is it? How big is the team? What's the job you're looking for? So she gave me this kind of list of questions. And I started going through the questions and I realized I don't want to do any of this. I don't want to start all over again. I don't want to have, I don't want to, you walk into a new job, everyone knows you have to prove yourself again. You have to go through learn the politics of the new company. Every company has its politics. I realized I don't want to do that. And so I went back to her and she said, well, what did you decide? I said I'm going to retire. And so I'd already called my financial planner. I said, then can I retire in January? If I retired January versus June, he said, either way, you've built what you can to retire, particularly if you decide you're going to do some work in the meantime. If you do some consulting, you're not really touching any of your retirement money yet. And so that was the decision. Obviously, talking to my husband and saying, this is kind of where I'm headed. He was perfectly happy with it. He said, if we can afford it, he's happy. At the time, I was commuting back and forth from DC to Tampa. So he was pretty excited to get rid of that commute.
Yeah, right. Absolutely. Absolutely. I get it because years ago, I made up my mind that I wanted to retire at the age of 55. And I did, but I had to be prepared to do that because I always set goals to do it. And one of the things you said, like I remember in the corporate field, people like, oh, I can't wait to retire. Girl, I'm going to retire. I think I'm going to retire at 65. I think I'm going to retire. And it's interesting, people can't wait, but retirement is no joke.
No joke.
I mean, what do you do when you do retire? I mean, do you sit home, look at TV?
Right.
I mean, because if you're not doing something or growing, you will die. I mean, it'll just, yeah. So I applaud you for your coach, which was great. And I share with my listeners that they should have a coach, a mentor, whomever to help them through this transition. Now, don't just quit and say, look, I'm tired of this. I'm not going to do this and I'm going to move on. And I know people that have done that. And you have it yourself when you do things of that nature. So, Lisa, my listeners, all of them are not ready. Many of them are not ready to retire. Some of them are thinking about it. Some of them are, like you indicated, it wasn't that I wasn't happy. I just felt that there was something else calling me to do. And I was like that. Like, I know there's something else. I just didn't figure it out. Someone to start a business, a job change, there's something inside. So what advice do you have for those who are struggling with that type of transition?
Yeah. So one of the things, and I think not selling you, but I think one of the things that has helped me is having, and I still have a coach. So the executive coach that I had throughout most of my time as a CFO, today, to this day, we still have a conversation once a month because she doesn't trust that I'm going to stay on task. And so she said, I need to keep talking to you every month because we're not done. And I need to make sure you're going to stay on the task. Okay. That is critical, right? So having somebody to help you figure out, A, what you're good at, B, give you the right questions. Because this really isn't about telling people or pushing them. Coaching is about somebody asking you the right questions to make you think about things you're not thinking of. And so just having somebody, one who, like the coach who from the other program, who asked me, tell me what this company looks like that you're gonna go to and what's the job. And she made me think about things that came back and said, I don't want to do any of that. So my first recommendation is if you don't have somebody in your life who can challenge you with those questions, that you should consider finding somebody who can, because even if you have an idea, you then need to have someone to bounce these ideas off of, right? Because I often say to people, if you've got a thought about what you want to do, the first thing you want to do is create a side hustle. Don't leave your main job. Right. Do the side hustle job until your side hustle becomes your main hustle. And and that's not my quote. I stole that from somebody, but you keep side hustling until you can make enough money to make it your main hustle. But most of us have some windows in our job where we really could start the side hustle, whatever it is, and begin to develop it. It would also help us to figure out whether this side hustle is something we want to do full time. Like, is this something I would really want to do? Or is it as a side hustle great, right? It's great to run your own business, people think, until you have to get paid, right? So yes, it's great, but you still have to get paid. And sometimes getting paid, as you know, as a consultant or a contractor, getting paid can be difficult, right? So make sure it's something that you want to do. If you're going to sell things, you're a salesperson, it's easy once you finish. But once you finish selling to all your family and friends, you still got to figure out who else you're going to sell to, right?
I know. That's right. That's right.
Yeah. So even though you might have figured out what you want to do, I still think it's important that you really lay out the plan. And that's one of the things that, I deal with people on this retirement. You need a plan. But for every major change in your life, you need a plan. A retirement has to be number 10 on the line of stressors for big things that happened, right behind having a baby, right? Buying a house. Those are things that we plan for, but we walk into retirement with no plan. Right. Sometimes we leave jobs with no plan, right? None of those things make sense. Yes, there are occasions where it just gets so bad you have to walk away or something happened. But still, if it gets that bad, that means it's been heading in that direction. You should start making your plan anyway. What's my exit out of here, right? Exactly. So I think we all need an exit plan from a job. Even if you're happy at the job, I still think you should have an exit plan because what happens if they have layoffs? And in this economy, that is not unusual. I mean, how many people thought they had a job forever working for the government? And so having an exit plan, a plan B, is really wise these days.
Yeah. So is any of that what I would call what people don't talk about as part of retirement?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I actually have a workshop coming up that's entitled "The Part of Retirement People Don't Talk About," which is nobody talks about the social aspects of retirement. That's your social networks change. Nobody talks about that you walk into retirement. There's a dark side of retirement, which is the loneliness and the depression that comes from people isolating themselves, right? Because when you retire, all of those touch points that you had, all those people you work with, yes, you may go to lunch with them 2 times, but after a while, it starts to fade away. Everybody's busy, And so I think it's really important for people to recognize that there is another side to retirement. Even if you have all the money in the world, when you retire, none of that creates happiness for you. None of that creates joy. You've got to figure out what are the things that bring me joy. And so that's why I want people to start talking about it. Like, yes, I walked into retirement. I've been in retirement for 2 years and I am completely bored and I don't know what to do. And I'm thinking about going back to work. As I say to people, I don't want to see you at the door as a Walmart greeter because you're bored, right? If that's what you want to do because you love greeting people, I'm all for it. But don't go be a Walmart greeter because you don't know what else to do in retirement because you're completely bored. And that's what happens to some people. They get so bored that they go back to work, not because they want to work, because it's something to do.
Right. Exactly. So why is reinvention is less about age?
Because I think we ought to be reinventing ourselves all the time, no matter how old we are. I think young people need to be reinventing themselves. I think older people need to be the world is changing fairly rapidly, right? And so if you're not reinventing yourself, if you have no idea about AI, you're going to miss an entire boat. Now, I'm never going to be an AI expert, but I use ChatGPT every day. It's kind of my new best friend. Right. You need to have some knowledge of what's going on with AI. Because there are lots of people don't understand it, and nobody needs to know the large machine language and all that kind of stuff. You don't need to know all the details of it, but you need to understand it. And that's why reinvention is important, because you need to make sure that as the times move and as things are changing, that you're somewhat keeping up with what's going on, not leaving yourself behind, because then you'll find yourself in a space where you're still living in, 19 or 2000 and everyone else has gone off to the next century, right? So that's really important to not get left behind, to keep what is it that you can do to keep reinventing yourself?
That's right. I concur. It's like the health and wellness industry, like nobody eating all those cookies anymore, all those hamburgers. And they missed the boat, just like the car industry. They missing the boat, so it's a lot of things. And you are so right. You have to stay informed and keep up with that stuff, because you will be left behind.
I love to use Blockbuster as an example of an organization that did not reinvent itself. I mean, there was a day when Blockbuster was it. You go out, you get your video, you come home, that was your weekend. They never paid attention. They didn't focus enough on the streaming So
Right.
Netflix came in and almost, it wasn't a secret. I don't think they thought it was going to take off. They thought the streaming
Exactly.
thing was just a niche. And as a result, they're out of business because they
That's
didn't
right.
reinvent themselves when streaming
right.
came up. And so it's the
Exactly.
same for us as human beings. If we don't keep reinventing ourselves as we see new trends, we're going to be left behind.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Like those electric cars, huh?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. My son and his wife have 2 electric cars right now.
Oh,
We haven't gotten to the place where we're ready to start plugging our car in every place we go, but
right.
they love them. They got 2 electric cars, and
Oh, yeah.
I get it. But I thought I always think to myself, the idea that I could run out of electricity and then I got to sit somewhere for 30 minutes to charge my car, that would appeal to me.
I know.
But at least I understand them. I'm not sure what of the electric car people, or at least not right now. Maybe when it's like pushed to, but again, reinventing ourselves to at least understand the draw of an electric car and why that's where young people are going.
Exactly. You're so right. Even social media, it's just so many things that have changed and will continue to change.
Absolutely.
I want to talk about now your mission is to support the psychological, emotional, and transition into retirement. And that means any other major transition?
Yeah. And so for this, I focused on retirement, but it's transition in general because there are aspects of retirement transition that are same for any transition at all, right? If you think about the psychological, you're going to step out of that job or you're going to step out of something you were doing. I even think about mothers who are full-time mothers. And they're now going to transition because their kids are gone and they're teenagers now, right? So now you're transitioning out of that, or you're transitioning, now you're empty nesters, another big change, right? For couples who are now empty nesters or single parents who are empty nesters, and you have to plan and figure out, what am I going to do with all that time now that I'm not carpooling and I'm not this and I'm not that, right? So all transitions require us to make some kind of psychological adjustment, a mental adjustment, and to make a plan for that transition. And sometimes we get caught by surprise of the elements of the impact of the transition. We get a little caught by surprise, like, whoa, I've talked to, a couple people on the transition of empty nest, and they said, I just didn't expect it to hit me like that,
Yeah.
And I said, we all transition different. And some people have kept their child's room as a shrine. And other people immediately turned it into a she den or a he den. Like, I got my space now,
That's right.
So it just depends on the person, right? And so I think people need to at least take a look at it for themselves, so they can say, I may react this way, but I think I'm going to react this way. But if I react this way to the loss of my child going off to college, what am I going to do to fill that in? Because you don't want to be the parent who decides, well, my son's or daughter's off to college, I'm going to show up for everything they have on campus so I can be a part of their life. I got news for you. No college student wants that. They may never tell you that, but no college student wants you at every event on campus.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That is so true. That's why I went away to college.
Absolutely.
So they wouldn't drive through.
Right. You got to be far. Young people need to go far enough away so their parents can't show up. I used to laugh at my goddaughter, and I would tell her, because I said, you better go a little farther away because your mother will be at everything.
I know. That is so true. That's true. Lisa, let's talk about that killing it formula. You have the book, you have the companion journal. Let's talk about that formula.
Yeah. So after saying it on stage, and I was really a little tongue in cheek, I went away and thought, people really need to figure out how to create a plan. And we as human beings, we like acronyms, we like formulas, we like things we can remember. And I said, well, people can remember killing it because it's pretty something we just use in language. And so the K stands for keep moving. And that's keep moving physically, mentally, and socially. Because the challenge when you walk into retirement is that you become stagnant. You mentioned it earlier, that you end up staying in the house. And mentally, how are you going to keep challenging your mind, right? You're now not at work. So you now need to make sure you're challenging your mind. And then socially, your circle's going to change. The first I stands for imagine what's next. And this is where I get clients to get really excited about retirement. What can you do with this next phase of your life? What are some goals you can set? What are some big, crazy things you could set for yourself, goals you could set, something you've always wanted to do, but you never had the time because you were working. The first L stands for laugh a lot, because as adults, we just don't do it enough. We just, as kids, we're laughing all the time at all kinds of things. As adults, we just take life a little too seriously.
Yeah.
Retirement is a great time to redefine playing outside for adults.
Right.
The second L is live for legacy. And that's how you're going to make an impact. How are you going to share your wisdom? Your legacy isn't over because you stop working, that you're just moving you're extending your legacy to another part of your life. How are you going to do that? The second I is ignite your passion, helping people find out what they're passionate about. We all know that whatever you're doing and you're passionate about, it gives you energy. You're ready to go. You're ready to jump in there. Yeah. The N is nurture your network. That's where you have to cultivate these meaningful relationships, because they're going to change and shift, and some are going to go away and some new ones are going to come, and you figuring out what your circle looks like now. The last I stands for invest in others. I think, I'm a firm believer in the biblical principle of to whom much is given, much is required. And I think most of us coming out of our responsibilities and our roles, we've been given a lot. And so we need to find out how we're going to give back. But even if you weren't in a big corporate role, there's lots to do in your own family. I love the people who decided I'm going to take on the family history. Engaging young people in the family, because family histories are being lost, right? How could you invest in young people in your own family for that? Or invest in older people. Let them tell the stories, even if they're telling them for the third time. Let them tell the stories and write those stories down so that you can pass them on. And the T stands for tell yourself you're killing it, which is you have to own your retirement, because some days you're going to wake up and it's just not going to feel like you're killing it. But you have to encourage your own self and say, well, I'm going to pick a letter today. I'm going to kill it on this today because I'm going to walk out. And I tell myself, don't let yourself be down too many days, right? So make sure you have that person, that accountability person. Could be that coach, could be that mentor that you have to meet with. So you certainly can't say I did nothing for the last week.
Exactly.
Accountability partners are key.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. What is it? Killing it formula. And you're right. Even the killing it was like, oh, that's kind of neat. And you have a book, right? You got a book.
I have a workbook, that companion workbook that has exercises in it. It's a digital workbook that has exercises, allows people to fill out forms and, really figure out some of this stuff for each of them and set goals for themselves on some of them. So, so I'm working on that, doing some workshops for people to help them to really begin to work through it. Because as someone said to me when they read the book, doing some of these exercises, it's not easy. I said it isn't, because you got to push yourself to think outside the box. You got to push yourself to think broader than you might. If I ask you to list all the things that you ever thought you ever wanted to do, you're going to stop shorter than you would if I kept encouraging you to write and write and write. No, what else? But what else did you want to do, right? Sometimes you just need the person to say what else to you. And then you're like, well, I thought maybe I want to garden. Maybe you put all these things down. Then you realize maybe I don't want to do some of this stuff. It's okay. But you now have a list of possibilities that you could do for the next 20 to 30 years. Yeah.
And that's good. It's not doing what you think somebody else wants you to do. Do what you want to do.
Do what you want to do.
Exactly.
Because retirement is your time. I think people should do, people ask me now, what do you do? I say, whatever I want. Because, the second question after your name is, well, what do you do? Because everybody wants to know what your job title is. And I'm not the person who's going to say I'm a retired CFO, because that's not a title. That's not a thing. There's no job called retired CFO. And people say, what do you do? I say, whatever I want, because I'm retired. And and they usually start laughing and say, I like that. Good, because that's what retired people should say. I do whatever I want and when I want, because I'm retired.
Right. That's good. That's good. Lisa, how can my listeners get in touch with you? Now, you have started your, what is it, a 4-week virtual workshop?
Yeah. So the first one I'm doing, the 4-week virtual, I'm going to start that actually in 2026 now, because we've got so many other things going on and going here and here. But I am going to start the first workshop in 2026. I am easy to find. Everything is retired and killing it. So my My website is www.retiredandkillingit.com. My Facebook page is Retired and Killing It. My Instagram page is Retired and Killing It. Coming out with a YouTube page that'll be Retired and Killing It. So I'm on theme. You type in Retired and Killing It. I'm trying to make sure that when you type that in, the only thing you find is Lisa Haynes.
All right. Girl, that's you coined that, right?
I'm trying to work hard to coin it, working with a trademark attorney to see if we can trademark Retired and Killing It.
I know. I love that. I love that. Wow. Well, Lisa, I want to thank you for your insight. I'm thankful for the work that you're doing. I love the killing it part. You're right. We all use acronyms because we remember them to keep it moving. Imagine what's next. Laugh a lot. Live for your legacy. Ignite your passion. Nurture, network, invest in others, and tell yourself you are killing it. Absolutely. I love that. I love that. Again, thank you. I was going to say, is there anything else you want to tell my listeners? But it sounds like you said it all. But if there's anything else.
I think I said it all. I'm grateful. I thank you for being on your show. I had a great time. This is a great conversation. But, I would just say to them, no matter what stage you're in, consider reinventing yourself. That's the only thing I would say. Don't feel stuck because stuck is just a state of mind. You can always get unstuck. And if you need help, go get help to get unstuck.
Oh, wow. Thank you so much. Lisa, what I always tell my listeners is bye for now. God bless you. And Is Your Way in Your Way is on every week. And in the event that this particular podcast, this episode has been a blessing, which I know it has, please share it. Listen to it over and over and over till somebody really gets it. And Lisa, thank you. And I'm certain in the show notes, I'll have all your information for my listeners.
Okay,
again, thank you so much. God bless.
Thank you.
Hey, thanks for listening. If you've been enjoying our empowering conversations, make sure you don't miss out on future episodes of Is Your Way in Your Way podcast. Stay in the loop with all the latest episodes. Join our mailing list over at CassandraCrawley.com. And before you go, hit that like button, share with your friends, and subscribe now. Until next time, let's get ready to live your best life.